Well, because I do this every year, it is time to take a look at the nominees for the 2023 ENnies. I think we can all agree that the ENnies have lost whatever credibility they have ever had, if they ever had any credibility. I've always been interested in it, and up until 2019, I usually agreed with it. Then something changed. Virtue signaling, the pandemic, the politics of the gaming industry, and pretty much they started going down. Oh my God, I'm still getting all these text messages. Now what's this one? So I think whatever remaining respectability the ENnies had, they lost when they voted for Alice is Missing as tabletop role-playing game of the year. One, because it wasn't a tabletop role-playing game. Two, zero sales, literally vanished, despite being nominated tabletop role-playing game of the year. So we have the nominees, and there's a couple on here that I question, and there's one on here I completely disagree with. And so I might go a little off the rails here, and I might say some things that are not politically correct. So if that's something that upsets you, let me just let you know now. But yeah, I haven't agreed with the ENnies in about 3 years. I've always sort of liked to rub it in people's faces how little Wizards of the Coast 5e stuff gets nominated. But for the first time in 10 years, they have nominated Wizards of the Coast D&D product for a thing, and it's Radiant Citadel. And I am going to 100% disagree with it, and I'm going to go over my reasons why. I know why it was nominated, but I think if and I'm going to say why I think it's the wrong choice. So again, if that's something that upsets you, if you don't want to listen to me badmouth Wizards of the Coast or virtue signaling nominations, you probably should stop listening. I'm going to take a drink of my water while you make up your mind. All right, here we go. This year's 2023 nominees. So some of these we'll skip because they're boring. For the Judges Spotlight winners, the nominees are One Breath Left from Kevin Combs, Dungeons of Dark Helm from Jim D'Also, Void 1680 AM from Christopher Gath, Moonlight on Roswell Beach, a queer game of disco and cosmic horror by Candice McKay, and Farcraft by Shauna Ratcliffe. So I don't know enough about any of those games to say or agree or disagree. A queer game of disco and cosmic horror. Couldn't it just be a game of disco and cosmic horror that had some queer representation in it? And am I ever going to know if this game was nominated because it is a really quality game or because it was created by individuals who are LGBTQT and you are just virtue signaling? So I don't know. I mean, that's just it. That's part of the problem here. It could, using that choice of language basically means if I don't nominate your game, I'm homophobic. But if I am nominating your game, am I nominating your game because I think it's an excellent game worthy of the judges' spotlight, or because it is a queer game of disco and cosmic horror? Best Adventure, Broken Tales from World Anvil Publishing. Journey Through the Radiant Citadel. We'll get back to that one. Unexpected Wedding Invitation. Vasin RPG Season of Mystery from Free League. And VHS Very Horror Stories from Aces Games. Why I disagree wholeheartedly that this is the worst. I mean, look, if you want to make a token Wizards of the Coast nominee for 2023, fine. It'd be the first time in 10 years you've nominated something from Wizards of the Coast. But why this one? Wizards of the Coast had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 products that were official Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons products in 2022, and about 25 DM's Guild unofficial products that came out in 2022. Amongst those was Call of the Netherdeep, Mordecai's Presents, Radiant Citadel, Spelljammer Adventures in Space, and Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Now, any one of those, if you wanted to be a token Wizards of the Coast representation, nominee. Call the Netherdeep would have been fine. Spelljammer probably would have been a better choice. And Dragonlance probably would have been your best choice. But Radiant Citadel is the worst possible choice because not only does it not do what it's being nominated for, it's not a good adventure. Nothing about it is good. It is a horribly written product that could have been so much better. So if you needed to give a token, they had LGBTQ writers and writers of multiple cultures, so we got to represent it. Dragonlance, not this one. I will never. There's nothing you can say that'll convince me that Radiant Citadel will ever be a good choice. Best AD&D accessory. Nobody cares about those. Best aid accessory non-digital. Nobody cares about those. Best art cover. Blackbirds by Dave Raposa. History Arcanum by Metis Creative. Shiver, Gothic Secrets of Spiral Home by Parabel Games. Swords of the Super Team by Pellegrin Press. And Xanadu, not the movie with Olivia Newton-John, with Pietro Grad. Best interior art, Flabbergasted from The Wanderer's Tomb. Incarnations from Metalweave Games. Oz, a fantasy role-playing setting from Andric McNeil. Seven Sinners from Mansion Project Studios, which is now owned by Mophidius, I believe. And Vassin, that's 2 nominees for Vassin. Mythic Britain and Ireland. Best cartography, Blade Runner RPG starter set. Remember when Blade Runner was the most anticipated role-playing game of the year? Yeah, that fell short. Campaign Builder, City Towns and Mapfolio. Claw Atlas, new maps for Beak, Feather, and Bone. Duck Quest from Exalted Funeral. Well, yeah, obviously, it's got ducks in it. Of course it wins. High Guard Update from Mongoose Publishing. Best electronic book. You don't care. Best family game product. No one cares. Best free game product. No one cares. Best game. Fabula Ultima Core Rulebook. God, wow. Flabbergasted by The Wanderer's Tomb. Passion de la Passions by Magpie Games. Slugbuster. Kickflip Over a Quantum Sepatide by Wilkie's Candy Lab. Trophy RPG by the Gauntlet Gaming Community. I don't know anything about any of those except Fabula Ultima, which is supposed to be a really good anime role-playing game. The rest of these I've never heard of, so I guess I need to look into them. Best layout and design, Blade Runner RPG. Remember when Blade Runner was the most anticipated game? Yeah. Elderith Overlord. Frontier Scum. Nolan Lokes Exquisite Corpse. And Woman Are Werewolves by 9th Level Games. Best Monster Adversary. Yeah, who cares? Best online content. Nah. Best organized play. Nobody cares. Best podcast. We have already gone over this. Best production value. Blackbird's RPG, Servant of the Gods. Carbon Gray RPG Deluxe Set. Die, the role-playing game. That's not even out yet. How is that getting nominated? Household, Tulip by and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, The Enemy Within. So only 2 of those are 3 of those are names I recognize. 1 isn't even out yet. So again, this is where the questioning is, and this is where the legitimacy of the ENnies comes into play. And I've called them on this before, and the legitimacy, and I don't think they've been legitimate for a while. Some people will say they've never been legitimate, but if it's when they started nominating games that weren't made in the year they were supposed to nominate, then you're like, dude, that game's been out for 4 years. Why is it getting nominated? Or if they're nominating games that aren't even on the shelf yet, then you're like, yeah, come on, whatever. Best RPG related product. Best rules. Avatar Legends, the role-playing game. High Guard Update 2022. Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition. Rivers of London, the RPG. And Trophy RPG. Does anybody know anything about Trophy? That's 2 nominees for Trophy. It's a tabletop role-playing game of dark forest, doomed treasure hunters, and a world woven on a loom of rumor, history, and myth. So every other dark OSR, grim, dark style play that we've seen. Why is this one different? Best setting, Darkenhall, City of Munster. Shiver, Gothic Secrets of Spirehome. Swords of the Serpentine. Vassin, another one for Vassin. And Vermin 2047. Best supplement, Barkeep of the Borderlands by Prismatic Wastelands. Incarnation by Metalweave Games. Into the Citadel by Wet Ink Games. Intoxomancy by Steve Conley. and Roll and Play, the sci-fi character kit by Roll and Play. So that's 1, 2, 3 based upon drinking. Interesting. Best writing, Gran Machismo from Osprey Games, Necrobotic Core Rulebook, Swords of the Serpentine, Pellegrin Press, The Book of New Truism, Pellegrin Press, and Wild Sea RPG from Mythopia. Product of the Year, Broken Tales from World Anvil, Eldrith Overlord from Weirdworks, Fabula Ultima from Need Games, Flabbergasted. What is Flabbergasted? That's a couple nominees for that one. Flabbergasted is the comic tabletop role-playing game set in the Roaring 20s. Join an up-and-coming social club and get up to mischief, mayhem, and many marvelous misadventures all before your afternoon tea. I don't know, but okay, sure. Maybe it's a good game. Household, Journey Through the Radiant Citadel, Rivers of London, Swords of the Serpentine, Trophy, and Vossen. So Trophy and Vossen seem to be the two big ones. Guess I need to look at those. And, you know, without knowing anything about any of these games, I can't say whether I agree or disagree. Obviously, I have to look into this. But Radiant Citadel definitely... I mean, well, congratulations, Wizards of the Coast. It's the first time you've been nominated for an ENnie in like 10 years. Of all the products that you made in 2022, the worst one is getting nominated. Makes no sense. Now, there's obviously a couple on here where you're like, well, is this nominated because it's a good game, or is it nominated because it's a diversity nominee? And if we didn't nominate that game, people would say we're racist. Now, who do I think is going to win role-playing game product of the year? Well, obviously, it's either going to be Trophy or Vossen or Fabula Ultima. I would be extremely disappointed if Radiant Citadel won. Wizards of the Coast would have to give them a lot of money, and the ENnies would have to drop whatever little respectability they have left. And it's not to say that maybe there aren't good products that came out from Wizards of the Coast last year. I mean, you know, maybe the Dragonlance book was good. Spelljammer might have been okay. The DM's Guild stuff, but not Radiant Citadel. I mean, anything but Radiant Citadel. Radiant Citadel was just bad. Just bad. There's no reason for it to be nominated, even if it's a virtual signaling nomination. Now you might be wondering why a certain game isn't nominated, because there was a certain game that came out that blew the roof off the industry. Kelsey Dion's Shadow Dark RPG. Why isn't that nominated for Product of the Year? Because it came out in 2023. These are all games that came out in 2022, except, of course, that there's at least one on here that didn't come out in 2022, possibly more. But definitely there's at least one game on here that did not come out in 2022. So I don't know, but they've done this before. You know, when they've nominated games that came out, like I remember 2020, there was a game that came out in 2017 that was being nominated. I was like, that game's been out for 2 years. How much money are these people paying you to keep their game on the list? Now, again, people are going to say the ENnies don't matter for anything, right? I don't know what judges the best game or whatever. I used to have some respect for the ENnies, but I haven't had any respect for them for a while. You know, when they said, oh, Alice is Missing is the best tabletop role-playing game of the year, we were pretty much like, yeah, that's not even a role-playing game. It's literally Werewolf reskinned. It's a card game. It's a party game. It's not a role-playing game. Which one of you is the traitor? It's Trouble in Trader Town. It's not a role-playing game. And, oh my God, the game didn't sell at all. And after it got that 1 second of fame, it disappeared. Of course, usually the games that win the ENnies don't really stick around for very long. The exceptions, of course, being the Free League stuff and the Mephidius stuff. Those games, they stick around. They're still, they're still influencing. Blades in the Dark, obviously. Mork Borg, obviously. Mothership, obviously. Huge influences on the industry. Well worthy of the nominations that they received. On the other hand, where's, Radiant Citadel? So knowing almost nothing about any of these games, I'm not sure which one I would say is best role-playing game of the year. I wouldn't give it to Trophy. I mean, Trophy and Vossen are basically the exact same game, just using different systems. So who knows? Why isn't Shadow Dark on here? Because Shadow Dark came out in 2023. I don't. What is going on with the OSR? I don't fucking know. There you go. That's the nominees. What on here is? Do you agree with any of these? Is there anything on this list that you think is worthy of an award? Or have you just reached the point where you're just like, these guys don't even count anymore? What is your tabletop role-playing game of 2023, i.e. product that came out in 2022 that you were really excited about? Well, mine would have been Blade Runner, but that turned out to be a huge disappointment, didn't it? Most anticipated role-playing game of the year. Yeah, you waited too fucking long and you're milking a 30-year-old IP. That's it. That's it for today until we get to our comfy news of the day later on in the afternoon. Until then, let me know what you're thinking. What's your nominees? Nice to see Rasputin show up again. Haven't seen that guy in a while. I'll talk to you later. Remember, if you haven't liked, shared, and subscribed, please take a moment to do these things. It helps me immensely. And you get the privilege of knowing you help support poor Steve the cat, who's, just look at it. Look at that 13-pound baby just suffering over there. They still exist. They just lost whatever respectability they ever had after, I think, 2018. This is missing is the best role-playing game in the year. It's not a role-playing game. Literally, they just took Werewolf and changed it. Not a role-playing game. That's it. See you later. Stay off my land. Have a great day.